currently the senior packaging designer at Beverage in Seattle. Right?
Yeah, thank you. All right. Hey, everyone. It is great to be back. So I want to thank you all first and foremost for attending this speech. I know it's a Thursday afternoon, so being at school probably isn't the best thing you want to do right now. So I appreciate for you being here. So today I'm basically going to cover my journey from when I graduated GRC in 2013 to where I am today as the senior packaging designer at Beverage Company in Seattle. So basically I graduated December 2013 with a concentration of design reproduction technology. At the time, I truly had no idea what I wanted to do after graduating, which was really stressful and hard because I saw a lot of my peers being able to get jobs right after college. So I wasn't exactly sure where I wanted to go, but I knew that I loved design and I loved being able to create a tangible piece that consumers were able to experience. So that's kind of what led me in my pathway to where I am today. I consider where I wanted to go, agency or in-house. I know as a designer, that's also a very big thing. If you want to be an in-house designer or an agency, because the agency is more of that sparkling light that every designer wants to go to in the beginning. So after I graduated, I moved back home to San Diego, where I landed a dream job working at Stone Brewing. I was always a big fan of craft beer and everything that craft beer stood for. Obviously, craft beer spirits they do amazing design work, so it was really a dream job for me to be able to get that job right out of college. But admittedly, that was a big risk when I took that job because I initially took a job as a 2-week contracting position. So the company has a really small in-house team, and every single year they have, oh yeah. Can everybody hear me well without the mic? Okay. So I may need to,
live stream can't hear you.
Yeah, so I shouldn't shout anymore into this.
No.
Okay. So like I was saying, taking a 2-week contracting position at Stone was a dream job for me, but also it was only 2 weeks. What does the future actually hold with a 2-week contracting position? So they just needed extra support. They have an annual anniversary beer festival, and they needed help doing production-like projects for the event, basically just making signage and helping out need be. However, after 2 weeks, my contract extended into 2 months, which then extended into 6 months. And then after that, I was hired on full-time and worked there for another 5 years. And I am a true believer that everything that I learned inside of these walls is what made the employer of Stone keep updating my contract, keep needing to have me around. And with that, it was more because I wasn't an issue. They didn't really need any oversight on me. Even though I was doing production-like work and making signage, I needed minimum oversight because of what we learn here, being able to design for what will be produced. So that is something that you should not take for granted in this major because it really does come in handy. So that helped me land the full-time position. And that stress of finding the work finally went away after 6 months of just contracting there, not knowing if I would be there for another month or two because they just kept renewing that contract. So kind of getting into it, this is some of the work I've done for Stone. Like I said, I was hired on for just a 2-week production job, which turned into 5 years and turned into designing seasonal campaigns, merchandise, packaging, pretty much anything you can imagine that falls under one brand itself. And being able to do that, I kind of just worked my way through the company, and I was able to be one of the 2 designers I worked with straight with the art director to rebrand Stone's entire branding. I'm not sure if anyone's too familiar with what Stone used to look like, but here's a little gist of it. The typeface was Castellar, which is just straight out of the 90s. Like this is just all 90s right here. So the goal of the rebrand was basically just to bring Stone into modern day, giving it cleaner lines, but still keeping the attitude that comes with the gargoyle and come with the branding. Something else that Stone also had, as you can see on that six-pack, is their logo was very intricate. Just the icon itself was this full gargoyle. It couldn't scale down. You could not reproduce it. It would have to be that large on every package, or else detail would just drop off and it would be a mess trying to do anything with it. So the goal of it was to eliminate the detail and only focus on the gargoyle head, so making it more of an icon and something more recognizable, but still having that attitude that comes forward with it. So basically, it was really important to keep the whole identity of the brand while still bringing it within modern day, especially with the craft beer industry booming. Like there are hundreds of craft breweries just in San Diego, let alone in California. So being able to stand out, getting a little bit away from black, bringing in more color, and also really focusing not just on the branding, because luckily Stone is one of the original craft breweries. They originated in 1996. So they have that big cult following already. So the goal of the packaging was also to downplay the branding itself and more about the styles of the beers that we each have. Because Stone, I don't know if you're too familiar with Stone, but they're known for IPAs. They basically just make the hoppiest IPAs that you could ever drink. So really emphasizing the different styles of the IPAs and showing that they are different flavor profiles from one another was also a goal of that rebrand. Yeah, so basically that was a little bit of my time at Stone. And the main takeaway why I told that story was I know being on the other side of it, being in these seats, knowing that it's hard and stressful to find a job after college. You see peers around you getting jobs immediately. And don't be afraid to take a risk. If there's a company that you really align with, you know, make sure you go for that job, even if it's just a 2-week position, because you never know what that can turn into. And for me, that turned into the next 5 years of my life. So from Stone, I moved over to Talking Rain Beverage Company, and they're located in Seattle. So a lot of people aren't too familiar with Talking Rain. They have a sparkling water brand that is just distributed in the Pacific Northwest, but their main brand is Sparkling Ice, which is in the corner there. I'm sure everybody has recognized that at some point in the grocery store. So Talking Rain is basically the parent company, and they have Sparkling Ice, which at one point was the best-selling sparkling water in the entire US, even beating out private label, which is huge because private label can mean anything. So now with the success of Sparkling Ice, Talking Rain is kind of spreading its wings into the beverage industry a little bit more, and putting more emphasis into Talking Rain sparkling waters, as well as having a completely different segment of the company that's focused on emerging markets and innovation. And that's the segment that I work in the most. As the senior designer there, I lead a team of conceptual designers, and basically they come out with 2 to 3 brands a year that go through test markets and strategy, and based on basically other functional beverages to play into the space. So I kind of have some examples of the Talking Rain branding right over here. So it comes in cans. You can pass these around because I'll talk about this. Be careful with these because they're aluminum and they could be sharp. There are those. Yeah, so even though I'm technically an in-house designer within Talking Rain operates more as a in-house agency, which I personally really like. The in-house design team is probably 3 times larger than it was at Stone Brewing. There are almost 20 designers, and there's different segments. There's a digital team, a graphics team that does all of the point of sale and in-store pieces, and then there's the packaging team that I'm a part of, which is split off into 2 other segments, the conceptual team as well as the production team. So leading that production or that conceptual team, we focus on those emerging brands. Trey is one of those right up there. That is now in the test market phase, so that is not completely out yet. But basically, what I'm going to do next is I'm going to walk you through the kind of day-to-day, day in the life of creating these new brands at Talking Rain. So creating a new brand, like what does that entail? That's a really big process to start. And luckily for us, it moves really quickly. And so we go through these steps. Within 3 months, we have a new brand out, which is insane. If you think of like the Nestle's or Coca-Colas of the world, they put out, it takes usually more of like 7 to 9 months, and that's working quickly as a very large brand. So 3 months is a lot. So I'm going to go and break down these steps for you. Basically starts out as a creative brief. We work internally with our brand and marketing team. They provide the strategy and where they want to go with it. So we have a formal kickoff with them, then we go into market research, mood boards, and then we finally get to design and then launch the product. So quickly moving into this is kind of what topics you would cover within a creative brief. Like I said, it's provided by our marketing or brand team, which acts as our in-house clients. So we have that design, we have that agency like mind where we work in-house with clients, make sure we hit their deadlines. So it's more of a functioning collaboration as well between them. So basically we have those kickoff meetings to discuss new projects, the objective, the target consumer, design, any design mandatories they may have, brand positioning, and communication hierarchy. So this is something where a graphic communication degree really comes in handy because all of this may seem really straightforward, but is really imperative to start a project while already knowing the end goal. So it's important to get from the marketing team, like what package type is this new product going to be in? And what is the actual sellable unit that you may see on shelf? So a trap that many companies fall into, at least in my experience, is that they may focus on a can design or a bottle design and only focus on that at first. But what's really the sellable unit is a carton or a 6-pack holder. It's not a can. Can may be what the consumer is drinking out of and experiencing, so obviously that is an important segment of it, but making sure that carton or 6-pack holder or corrugate box, whatever it may be, is really communicating and driving the brand is very important. So focusing on that sellable unit. And based off of all of this, this is actually when the successful designer works backwards. A lot of times you're not just doing a can and you're not just doing a carton, you're doing a can, carton, and corrugate box. And it's obviously very important to understand the printing limitations of each. As you know, what you're learning every day here is that the limitations of each printing technique drastically changes per substrates and also vendors used. I've worked with a couple of can vendors before that have completely different dye lines, completely different color units too. So it just doesn't make any sense because you think it would be the same with the end goal also just being a can or being a corrugate box, but it does vary per vendor as well. So having that back end knowledge as a graphic communication student and being able to communicate with vendors in a successful way to make sure your design comes across the way you intended is very important. So knowing all of these limitations up front before you even start the project within this creative brief is what makes a skilled designer become a successful one. You don't want to create a beautiful design that is not reproducible because you just won't be successful. So you could, it's kind of something that you fall into, at least in my experience, as a new designer coming into the workforce You want to do a really great design, very intricate, lots of detail, perhaps something illustrated, but if you can't reproduce that design, it won't go anywhere. So it's always important to start within the creative brief of what the end goal and objectives are with that. So based off of all of the information you get within the creative brief, you move into market research. Market research is something that is also extremely important, and it goes into a lot of branding the new projects even before starting design. So it's important to gather data, packaging and branding of all the competitors in the market that your product will sit in. And what you want to do is also analyze their strengths, weaknesses, and key brand differentiators. So this is just an example of market research on buy products. That's one of the competitors of Talking Rain. And it's just a quick breakdown of their strengths, weaknesses, and key brand differentiators within packaging only. Like if a product has caffeine and it does even state that it has caffeine on the front of the label, or does it not? How successful is it communicating what the product actually is to the consumer? So you pretty much do at least 10 different brands and really breaking it down and going through the strengths, weaknesses, key brand differentiators. I keep saying that for a reason because those are so important, and it's something that you may not realize is important, but being able to surmise everything at the very end and really help you position where your new brand should be within the competitive set that's already there. Because if you go down a market or an aisle in the market and you see a ton of beverages, so what makes your beverage stick out? So this information will also help you determine what is important to the brand and the consumer within that specific segment. What does the consumer need and what is missing? And it will also help you determine, more importantly, of what brands are not doing correctly, so you know where there's a hole within the marketplace that you can fit in there. So after the creative brief and market research, we move into mood boards. So mood boards are based off of roughly 3 different themes or key attributes of the product that you are launching. And they're made to reflect the market research as well as the creative brief to reflect the design aesthetic of the brand. So this is just an example of 3 different mood boards that were created for one brand. You have calming, soothing, which those words pretty much mean the same thing, but with just slight variations within it. But you could see that it's creating a whole mood with not just typography and imagery, but also color theory. What do you want this brand to reflect in the marketplace based off of that market research? Or do you want something more social interaction with it? So they all have very different things that they are communicating to help stand your brand apart from everything. So also in this phase, this is I don't have an example of it up here, but if time permits within a project, building a persona is a really great and useful tool to help focus the design direction before actually designing. So personas are actually fictional characters that you create that represent the type of consumer that you're trying to reach with your product. So usually they can even go as far as printing out a cardboard cutout of this persona that you're trying to hit. So say it's Tim, 34, loves punk music and whatever it may be. You put Tim in the room with you while you're presenting your ideas to leadership, and doing these personas really help you eliminate personal bias as it pertains to design while you're looking at branding and packaging of the design. And this is something that is really important because in a smaller private company, it's really easy for approvers of a design to use their own personal bias saying, oh, I like this, oh, I don't like this. But using personas are a great way to remind everybody in the room, this is the consumer we're trying to hit. We all may not be the consumer for the specific product, and more often than not, you're probably not the consumer for the product you're making, especially if it's more of an in-house team or even an agency where you're trying out different products at each step. So I personally really like personas. They are very helpful and definitely help you stay more on track with the end goal of the product. So after you go through all of these steps, then you finally move into design. So one thing I really want to emphasize here is that doing those 3 steps should take up 2/3 of the product's lifespan as you were about to create this design. Doing all this research up front and doing all the market research, mood boards, everything helps you stay in this one lane to go into before you just start going to the computer and start designing. This is something that I found in my experience is extremely helpful to do, or else you'll go to the computer, design something, like, oh, this isn't right, this doesn't hit my target consumer at all, scrap that, start again, which you end up taking up more time designing than you do having a very focused design. So I apologize, I can't show any new designs or responsive branding here. But in the meantime, basically just walking you through what designing stage looks like. Usually start with sketching, whether it be an iPad or a pen and paper. I still prefer pen and paper. But you usually design at least 3 to 5 different concepts based off of one mood board that you picked in the previous round. So while you're actually doing the sketching for if it's a can, carton, you do that all up front to build a holistic brand. So instead of just the packaging, you also want to make sure you are building the responsive branding of the package as well, because you could make a logo that looks amazing on a package, but if it can't stand alone, not even on letterhead, but if it can't stand alone on digital or social media at all, it is not a successful logo. So building all of that at once is extremely helpful to build a holistic brand, even within a packaging segment here. So responsive branding is something that's really helpful. You see how it looks on the package itself and how it interacts with the rest of the design elements on the package. But like I said before, you see how it stands alone. And obviously you need a couple different segments of the logo or different configurations of the logo for it to be successful with whatever use it is going to be used in. So besides just the primary and secondary logo, it's important to also have a word mark and social mark and icon. Not all brands have these, but as a packaging designer, you want to meaningfully plan for success with the logo in addition to the package. So on a website scenario, making sure you have a good horizontal logo that works. You don't tend to see really vertical logos on websites because then your header would just be so long. So horizontal logo for websites, or even a circle logo icon, a social avatar is what they're called as well, and making sure that works on every single social platform as well. So after the design phase, we get into the product launch. So the product launch consists of many different things. I'm just showing a pre-flight checklist here example, but a product launch can consist of consumer testing, which it's actually really fun. You get to go to focus groups and actually stand behind the one-way mirror and see what consumers are actually saying about your design as well as the product concept as a whole. And from that, there's focus groups, there's just actual test markets too. There's also iHuts where you have some in-home testing. So these are used to refine the design to make sure the packaging and branding are communicating what's intended. So at this phase of the consumer testing, we would still go back and forth and make little tweaks of the claims or different attributes that are communicated either on the front panel of the package or on the side panel of the package. So after that, once everything is approved across the board, after you make all of your presentations to leadership or the clients and get everybody's approval, you go into the mechanical phase. So like I was saying in the very beginning, you don't design without knowing what this end goal will be. What will it be printed on? A can, carton, corrugate. So when you go from sketching to actual going digital with your design, always design on the die line. cannot stress this enough, always design on the die line. There's been a couple scenarios that I've been in where a die line, just a general version of the die line was used, maybe just a box as just a placeholder, and then you realize, oh, well, it folds here and the lip is here, so actually all this is off and everything has to be shifted at the very end, which is very difficult to go around and get all of senior leadership approvals and all of marketing's approvals again. So definitely work on the die line immediately when you start designing. Moving into the mechanical phase, I personally don't do this too much anymore, but making sure you work on the die line so when you pass off to the production artist, they actually have something they can work with and you don't just hand them something that can't be workable at all. Because then you'll move into this pre-flight checklist. And I remember going through these in some of our classes when I was a GRC student, and this is something that you really do use in real life. It is so important to use a pre-flight checklist, and this is actually something that Talking Rain did not have when I first got there, and a simple spelling mistake can cost you thousands and thousands of dollars on a package. So making sure you have this pre-flight checklist. If the company doesn't have it, make it. It is very important. Work with all of the stakeholders within a project to know exactly what you need on each project. It can be as simple as, oh, a social icon fell off of the project, or oh, a kosher bug fell off. You know, there's a couple little things like that that you may look and say, oh, everything's spelled correctly, so everything's fine. But there could be that little piece of information that completely everyone just forgot about, and the smallest little detail could either have legal repercussions or just not be in alignment with the brand identity in general. So these are very important, and always proof on a hard copy. That's something I also can't stress enough. If you can, print full size, the vendor die line that you get back. A lot of the times you'll do this twice, so you'll do it before you even send the package to the vendor, and then you'll get a vendor proof when they send it back, at least with cans specifically. Cans, actually for all of these. The vendor will put it into their own pre-flight or pre-press system and create any trappings or any other elements that they may need on their own side, and then they'll send you back their proof, which then you should print out a hard copy and check against this as well, because sometimes too, depending on the vendor, some things may fall off, or if you've worked with them for many years, they may use some old art instead to try to shorten timelines. So being able to be thorough is very important. This may be the more, I don't know if it's more mundane part of it, but this can be arguably the most important part of it as well. So after this, after you send back your vendor proof approvals, they then schedule a press check. So this is something where your knowledge that you get every day here definitely comes in handy. Being able to attend a press check and making sure all the colors, registration, and everything is exactly as intended for your product, and being able to communicate with everybody at the vendor as well is also extremely important. So making sure not just the colors and registrations, but making sure it's up to standard. So one thing you'll run into as well is color matching is extremely difficult when it comes to trying to color match across a can, a carton, and corrugate. As you know, coated PMS is completely different than uncoated PMS. So trying to get those colors to match and keep the brand integrity across the board is something that's really important, and basically what you're doing at press checks, because at that point all of this has been done. So it's really just saying, does this reflect our brand well? Are these colors matching to the other substrates that these brand colors are being printed on? How do we tweak it on press to make sure it does fit? Let's see. So with that, I think I might have spoken pretty quickly. But with that, one thing, if you took away one thing from this speech, one thing that I want you to take away is that you really can't be a successful designer by just being great at design. Being able to design with intent, something that's rooted in research and data, and making every decision meaningful is really important. And also, as something you learn here every day, designing backwards is really what you need to do to be a successful designer in the professional world. Being able to make designs that are reproducible is the only way that your work will actually get out there in the way that you intend, and make sure you have all the control of it. So yeah, with that, is there any questions? I think we have some time left, so we can open it up. Yes. So that was actually a really hard switch for me. I really loved working at Stone. I was there for 5 years. All my coworkers basically became like family. I decided to make the switch just because I felt like I grew as much as I could as a designer, so I was just ready for the next challenge. Especially after doing the rebrand at Stone and being a part of that and a key driver within it. After that, it was more maintaining the packaging, so that's why I decided to make that switch after that. Yeah. No one's? Yeah.
Did you know that you wanted to go into packaging because you said you were done with production technology? I was just wondering whether the Stone opportunities led to that direction, or whether that was something you sought out.
Yeah, it was a little bit of both. I didn't specifically know that I wanted to do packaging, but I definitely wanted to be able to design something that people can interact with and have an experience with. And Stone was a company that I admired for a really long time, and the opportunity presented itself. And when I was at Stone, I had the opportunity to not just design packaging, but also design merchandise, point of sale, sell sheets, seasonal campaigns, pretty much everything a brand could do across the board. And packaging, that's kind of where I fell into packaging more, because that was when I was able to touch all of the other different aspects of it. Packaging was the one I was the most passionate about after that. So moving from Stone to Talking Rain, I also knew I wanted to do more of a packaging specific role because of my experience at Stone. Yeah. Right? Yes. Yes. So it is dealing mainly cans. So that Flexo now is on bottles. So it's dealing with Flexo as well as can printing. And then lithography is still as well with all of those cartons. So all of those different processes have obviously different limitations to it. So that's kind of what I was talking about earlier with making sure you maintain that brand integrity, because you may be able to use 6 spot colors on a can, but on a carton you may be limited to 2 spot colors and 4 color process in addition to it. So a lot of it's color matching and making sure you're able to not over design one aspect of it and having the other ones not kind of falling backwards because I designed for a can and not for a carton or a box. Did I answer your question?
Yeah.
Okay.
And then I have another question about your product. So, so we saw the design side. Do they give you the beverage and they say, this is what it tastes like?
Yes, so that's a great point. Yes. So working at Stone and also working at Talking Rain, there were innovation teams also just on the formulation side too. So they were constantly making new beverages. So yes, there are R&D beers, and also R&D functional beverages as well at Talking Rain, where we're able to taste it beforehand, and that helps drive the strategy and basically the whole kickoff of the whole brand as well, which is really special because sometimes a lot of smaller brands need to outsource that kind of thing. But we have a really great, at Talking Rain and at Stone, we have a really great innovation team where they're able to actually make the beverages in-house. And you're able to taste it, and that is a cause of a lot of inspiration too for where the brand should go.
I have 2 questions. I'll just throw them both at you. You can answer none of it. Maybe you can comment a little about the seltzer market, which is
It is.
And number two, this, this sheet has the FPO over the UPC code. And really, it's just a test. Is
That,
and
yes.
do you pay for that? Because the printer's going to print that, right?
Right, yeah, so that one is a test print, and we put FPO over the barcode so you know it's not a sellable unit. That was a result of a new vendor we were looking at to print with. So that was a test print from them. And because we were going back and forth between printing on a white film or printing on a clear film and just flooding it with white. So that was a result of that test. And yeah, the seltzer market is definitely blowing up, alcoholic and non-alcoholic. Obviously, LaCroix is a main competitor of Talking Rain as well as sparkling water. There's some differences though within that segment of, I'm not sure if anyone's had sparkling ice. Sparkling ice is kind of a bolder flavor compared to a LaCroix. Talking Rain is more of on the LaCroix, kind of more of a hint of flavor. And another new product that's just in test markets right now is called Trey, which is Talking Rain Elevate. And this is more of a performance water. So it has no sugar. I believe it's lightly carbonated, but it has electrolytes and a little bit of caffeine in it too. So it's able to use in conjunction with a workout, good at, you know, a 2 p.m. pickup that you may need throughout the day, but you don't want to have a cup of coffee. So it's finding different markets within the big market of sparkling waters and seeing what other niches and what other needs the market may need from that.
Are these aluminum cans printed by offset?
Offset? Offset?
Yeah.
Yes, I believe those are offset. Mm-hmm.
And so you're working with vendors, you're in Seattle now, right?
Yes.
So
I
are
am.
your vendors in Seattle, or are you having to travel?
No, our vendors are all over the place. There's some in Idaho. Idaho is probably the closest one we work with. Those cans are printed with Ball, and they're located right outside of Denver. So I've been to Denver a couple times for press checks. West Rock does some of the cartons, so they have, they're pretty much everywhere. They have a lot of different facilities depending on where you want to distribute your product out from. Georgia was the most recent place we've been to in regards to West Rock. I'm trying to think. I think those are the main ones. Ball, a lot of, now due to sustainability, a lot of the products are kind of shifting to aluminum rather than plastic bottles. So there's less of the film that we're doing, but so a lot is now going to Denver and going to Ball.
And then
Yeah.
you sent me was it a job or an internship when we first started communicating about you coming to visit and speak?
Mm-hmm.
So does Talking Rain have internships or any sort of programs in the summer for people that are interested in packaging or applying?
There is no official internship program, but we're always wanting to get internships in, and hopefully, I'm trying to think. So that job I sent you a couple months ago, that one has been filled, and that was for a packaging designer too, so someone with a little bit more experience. But with there not being a full internship program, that being said, we've had internships in the past though, so that's something we're definitely open to. If that's something anybody may be interested in, definitely reach out. Yeah.
I'm not ignoring you, but I was trying to look up, we have a grad that is, I think, the chief manager of Ball. Who's connected with them.
Oh yeah.
I can't remember his name right now. But
Yeah.
anyway, we want to thank you very much.
Yeah, thank you.
And everybody in the audience, we're going to do a real quick change to the next speaker. So just hang tight for just a moment. And those of you who are in 331, there's a sign-in sheet on the back table. You can sign it whenever you leave. Don't leave now. There's one more presentation that you should hear.
Hi, thank you.
That's all right? Okay. And do you have a computer? Caitlin does. Okay, cool. Thank you. Good job.
And HDMI work for you?
That, yes, that will work.
Okay, cool. Right there, I said?
Yeah.
Okay. And you're okay with the live streaming part of this?
Sure.
Okay, and are you going to do most of the talking? We only have one mic.
Okay, Molly and I can trade off.
Just like hand it back and forth?
Yeah, let's do it, because I
Okay.
think I have most of the front
Okay.
part of the presentation, and then she'll be
Sure.
pulling it up.
Okay, so just clip it anywhere you
Yeah,
like, and you can
okay.
just trade off.
Fantastic. So Molly, we're going to trade off on the mic. Okay.
Are we going to see you at 1865? Yes.
Fantastic, thank you.
I know is a recent grad, so I'm really excited to come see her new experience out in the real world of post-grad. So I'm really excited for that. And Caitlin Vaughn has a whole load of experience, and I'm so excited to see her role in marketing and in developing new talent, and just seeing how many projects that you've worked on. So if everyone can give a round of applause.
Thank you. Thank you so much for being here today. We are super psyched to be here. I'm looking at my watch. It's currently 34 degrees back at home, so we're really thrilled. How many of you have been to Wisconsin before? Awesome, you guys are our people. Molly and I made the trip this week to spend some time with you guys and share a little bit more about our organization, Quad. So another show of hands, how many of you have heard of Quad or Quad Graphics? Fantastic, I'm so excited to see that. We're going to talk a little bit perhaps about how you may have heard of us in the past and how we really are reinventing our future. As all of you guys know in graphic communications, things are changing, right? Print is changing. We want to be on the forefront of all the innovation going forward. So Molly and I are happy to be here, and today we're going to be covering a few things. So first, we'll introduce who we are, and then we're going to talk to you a little bit more about Quad and the transformation. But not only is Quad transforming, but I recognize that if you're graduating soon or you will be in a few years, this is a really transformative time for all of you. So we also want to talk about some really great opportunities that we have at Quad and some of those transformations that you will all be making. So then Molly will be taking it from there and sharing with all of you her disruptive adventure and her time so far at Quad as a corporate trainee. Sound good? Awesome. So why don't we get started? First of all, let's introduce ourselves a little more formally. So my name is Caitlin Vaughn. I am jealous of every single one of you because I didn't even know a program like yours existed when I was in college. I probably would have taken advantage of that. But my undergraduate degree is in marketing and Spanish from the University of Wisconsin-La Crosse. I'm originally from the Milwaukee area. I also have had the great opportunity of traveling with Quad. I've been there for 12 years now, came right out of school like many of you, and was able to actually work out into New York City for 4 years before I moved back to work at our headquarters. Molly, I think I have the mic right now, but I'll have you introduce yourself before you get going on your part of the presentation.
I'm Molly. Many of you probably know that. I graduated in June of the past year, so I am fresh into the brand new world. So I have been a corporate trainee for the past 6 months, so I'm pretty new to Quad. And yeah, later I'll talk more about my experience.
Great. And so right now I hold the position at Quad as the corporate trainee program manager. So I get to oversee about 70 of our early talent professionals, people coming right out of college. And we have a rotational based program that we'll talk about in a little bit, but what's so unique about our rotational based program is that it's not cookie cutter. Everyone has their own unique path. They follow their own interests and their own skill sets. And I can speak from personal experience. I actually went through the program myself, as well as many other Cal Poly grads before all of you. So before we dive into that though, let's talk a little bit about who we are. One thing that you may have noticed, Molly and I are wearing our snazzy quad blues. This is part of our culture. We have a really strong culture, and as you start evaluating organizations in which you want to work after you're done with your schooling, something that's very important to me, and I think is very important to so many people, is finding a home in which you can fit. And Quad has a very tangible familial culture. And we wanted to show you right out of the gate a signal of our culture called our values wheel. This isn't really lip service. This is something that we live and breathe and you see and interact with every day. And I think our uniforms are actually a really great example. So originally our uniforms were put on, you all know how dirty printing can get, right? And if you get some of that ink on your clothes, you will completely ruin your washing machine. So obviously it's really important for our folks who are working on our printing facilities to wear uniforms, and that way we can handle them, make sure that they get cleaned. Well, as we evolved as an organization and there were administrative functions, those folks were wearing, suits and really nice clothing. It really prevented them from wanting to get on the floor. And our CEO and owner and founder, Harry Quadracci, at the time thought, this is ridiculous, right? No one's better than anyone else. We all put on our pants one leg at a time. So everyone going forward wore uniforms. What's cool about this now is they've evolved a little bit. As you can see, Molly and I aren't exactly wearing manufacturing uniforms. But our uniforms still have our names on them. And they still hold our logo. And what's so neat about this is one of those tangible parts of our culture. Everyone knows your name, right? Like, how many times have you walked into a room, introduced yourself to someone, and then completely blanked on their name immediately afterwards? It can make for an uncomfortable experience, but when you work at Quad, everyone always knows each other's name. And it just helps make you build those relationships and really feel better connected with people right out of the gate. So before we start talking about our transformation, we also have a little bit of information about our organization. As some of you aren't familiar with us, we are a very large printing organization that's making a transformation into being a full service marketing solutions provider. But we currently have about 55 printing plants around the United States, in Poland, and throughout South America. We have on-site marketing solutions offices that actually sit within the four walls of our customers all over the United States. We have about a little over $4 billion in sales. So we're not a small company, but what I think you'll be hearing from Molly later on is that when you're in one of our plants or you're in a department, you also have that very small feel and family-like attitude. So let's talk a little bit about our transformation. We were founded in 1971, so we're getting close to our 50-year anniversary. And within that 50 years, we've really come a very long way. So we talk about our transformation in the way software development is talked about in a 1.0, 2.0, and 3.0 fashion. And that's because when we were founded and built for the first 30 plus years of our company, all of that work, all of those plants, all of that learning, that's just our foundation. We don't get away from that when we're continuously evolving and building. So when we were started, we originated as Quad Graphics, right? And we were really known for magazines, catalogs, retail inserts. We dabbled into direct mail. We have some really interesting ways of managing our business. Our founder, Harry Quadracci, thought it was really important for us, for example, to help tackle and mitigate the rising healthcare costs that exist for organizations. So at Quad, we actually have our own Quad Med. We have our own doctors, dentists, and eye care right on site. We've now actually subsidized that. We've grown that part of our business by just selling medical coverage. So we can talk more about that Friday if you guys stop on by at the career fair, but if you're at all interested in the medical facilities, we have those at Quad too. But this was really our foundational growth. We grew to about 11 plants throughout the United States. And if you think about the market and the industry in the 80s and the 90s, print was king, right? There was basically the main way of being able to disseminate marketing and publishing on a grand scale. But after the stock market crash in 2008, the industry started taking a little bit of a pause, right? Advertisers weren't putting as many ad pages in their magazines. Some of the retailers started folding. Not everyone was just doing a very large scale catalog drop of millions and millions of catalogs a week. They started becoming a little bit more targeted and directed. And of course, the advent of the internet, right? So in-store sales were looking different. People were being driven online. So Joel and his leadership team, our current CEO, took a really bold move. They took this small privately held company public, and we bought a company twice our size and started to really impact the industry by consolidating, right? There's a lot of excess capacity at the large scale printing functions. So while we were doing that, we also thought it was smart for us to build our share of wallet, right? We took the lean manufacturing and the print processes that we were really honing in on and developing, we were best in class in. We started applying those to different markets. So we also started acquiring different companies that really gave us a strong foothold in things like direct mail, in-store signage, which Molly will talk about in a little bit, more into campaign planning, packaging. We've always kept the customer at the center of what we do, and they keep asking for more and more. So we started actually working backwards, upstream into the marketing funnel. We've always done things like photography for clients, but we started kind of putting the marketing services together and creating a different stack of services. So now we're starting to get into things like consumer insights and market strategy, personalization, process optimization for our customers, helping them look at their marketing process and break down those silos for different channels of media and create one process that's a lot more streamlined and makes it less expensive and more efficient for our customers. This is what we're calling our 3.0 transformation. This is really disruptive, right? So there's so many different printers out there. There's a million different marketing agencies out there. But marketing agencies don't have the capital to actually execute on their campaigns. This is our blue ocean strategy. This is why we get really excited to work at Quad, because not only can we help our clients create and execute their strategy, but we can actually take it all the way home. We can print for Target. We can do their photography, their videos, their media buying. You can actually do their in-store signage, hang it in their stores. We can work on their private label packaging and actually print it and get it delivered to Target. So there's just so much that Quad now can do for our customers. And this is what we consider our beautiful new approach to marketing. So colorful engineering is our new kind of branding that we're getting out there in the marketplace. We recognize we have to look different and feel different because now we are actually talking to whole different people in our customers. Not only are we talking with their procurement teams to work in print, but we're also going all the way up the C-suite to help them break down costs, look at marketing completely differently, and then helping them execute on that marketing strategy. So I don't know how many of you were able to meet our CEO, Joel, last year. He was the guest speaker at the banquet at last year's GRC event. He sadly couldn't be here today, but we did want to share a video with you from Joel. This really helps explain what we just talked through and why we're doing what we're doing.
The audio is probably going to come to the projector, so I always have to be real quiet.
Okay, great. Okay, I always have a plan B. So 1 second, that's not working. Okay, we're gonna try this again, guys. Gotta love technology. Okay, ready? Oh, I see.
Yeah, other way.
Okay, here we go. Let's try it one more time. Sure. Great. Okay, so now I'm going to turn it down a little, guys. Awesome. Okay. I was taking a second to go because I think the video, let's try this. One moment, please. Why don't we start on this slide? Okay. So, I'm really obviously very excited and passionate about Quad, but I'm even more passionate about talking about some of the opportunities that we have for young professionals like yourselves. So whether you're interested in an internship or a full-time position afterwards, after you graduate, we do have opportunities. We love having students like yourselves, professionals who are working on that graphic communications degree, marketing degrees, and you want to apply that. There's some really amazing pathways for folks like you at Quad. What I'd like to share now, why don't we switch places, and perhaps Molly can share a little bit more about our corporate trainee program and her experience within it over the past 7 months or so.
I'll flip it. Cool. Hello? Okay, cool. All right, so now I'm going to take it back from Caitlin, and I'm going to talk a little bit about my experience in the corporate trainee program, how I picked it, how I actually got there, all that kind of stuff. But before I say anything else, I just want to say to those of you who are seniors in the room, it's okay if you don't ever have everything figured out. I promise it'll work out. At this time last year, I was in your seats, literally, and I had no idea what I wanted to do. I had no idea where I wanted to live, all that kind of stuff. So I promise it'll work out. So how did I choose the corporate trainee program? How did I choose to move to Wisconsin from California and actually make that happen?
So I chose a corporate trainee program because the corporate trainee program, just an overall view for those of you who don't know, it's a rotational program within Quad. So it's mostly for new grads like yourselves will be. And every 6 months you get a new position with the company. So it's really open-ended. It can really be anything. There's not a set path with the rotations. You can do anything from finance to print to marketing. All that kind of stuff is open. So I chose the corporate trainee program because it's learn by doing in the real world. I know learn by doing has been ingrained in you since your first day at Cal Poly, but it truly is the best way to learn, and the corporate trainee program offered that to me. Also, like I said, this time last year, I really didn't know what I wanted to do at all. I've heard about a bunch of different types of positions, project manager, account manager, didn't really know what that meant. So the corporate trainee program gave me the opportunity to try out a bunch of different roles without having the commitment to stay in one role. So if you think you like something and you try it and you hate it, well, it's over in 6 months. You get a new job. So it's nice flexibility in that sense. Also, you might try out a role that you wouldn't have thought you'd like and end up really liking it. And finally, I thought it was a very unique opportunity to build a well-rounded skill set. I really believe in cross-training, and this was one of the best ways to do that. So as I touched on earlier, how did I move to Wisconsin? How did I actually do that? I know that sounds like a really big, scary thing, especially for those of you who have maybe grown up in California and spent most of your life in California. So I literally packed up my car and I drove there. That's all I did. It was a really cool experience, actually, because I got to go up the coast through Portland and Seattle, all the way through Montana, North Dakota, Minnesota, and finally to Wisconsin. It was a cross-country road trip with one of my friends, and it was actually really fun. Got to see parts of the country I probably wouldn't have seen otherwise, so that was really cool. And yeah, I know it sounds like a really big, scary thing, and it definitely wasn't. I'm not gonna, but there's only so many times in your life when you can just pack up your life and go somewhere. So I really encourage those of you who have been in California your whole life, try to expand your mindset, maybe open yourself up to opportunities that aren't just in California, and you might be able to grow your career path and have new experiences that you wouldn't have otherwise. I have to say though, I probably wouldn't have been able to make such a radical change if it weren't for the support system that I received through the corporate trainee program. So on a purely logistical level, the corporate trainee program gave me 6 weeks of housing. So it's not like I was having to sign a lease right as I got there, or I had to, even worse, sign a lease without even seeing a place. I had that 6 weeks of transition time to settle into Milwaukee, figure out where I wanted to live, find a roommate, all that kind of stuff. So that was definitely a good system that I had there. Additionally, the corporate trainee program is an amazing community. There's 70 plus of us, around 70 in the program right now. All of them are recent grads or kind of young 20-somethings trying to figure out their career. So everyone's kind of in the same position as you, and you have that community. Also, you start the program with a group of other people. In my case, it was 7 other people, and this is actually them right there. So since you're starting with that group of people, you all are going through the same things at the same time. So it's easy to make connections and get close with them. This picture particularly was at one of our corporate trainee program events. So that's another great thing about the corporate trainee program, is that there's a lot of exclusive events and opportunities for professional development. This was at Trainee University, which is a 3-day event that is just so much fun. It's all the trainees, even from out of state, come back. There's speakers from the highest level of quad to some of our clients, all that kind of stuff. Different activities for professional development, and it was a lot of fun. The best part of Trainee University, though, is the dinner that we have. So it's kind of like the banquet, but it's at Quad's hangar, which is where they keep their private jet, which is super cool. They let us do a little tour of it, and it was fun because they let us take whatever dumb photos we wanted to. So I went up the plane and I pretended like I was being paparazzi'd because I thought that was funny. But overall, it's a really great network. And those those opportunities that you have are really unique to the corporate trainee program. And a lot of high-level execs attend that dinner as well, and a lot of them have actually been through the program themselves. So you're not treated like an intern or anything like that. You have a lot of respect through that program. Okay, so now that I've gone over kind of what the corporate trainee program is overall, I'm going to talk to you guys a little bit more about what my first rotation actually was. So now that I've been there for 6 months, I've been through a whole rotation. So I am about to transition into my next one. So my first rotation was within our in-store division, and in-store is pretty much an umbrella term for any type of marketing material, signage, displays that you would find within a store. So some of our top clients are Target, Kohl's, Carter's, Lowe's, Kroger, and a lot of major retailers. So I was a CAM, which is a customer account manager, and pretty much what a CAM is, they are ultimately a project manager for a specific client or customer. In my case, I was on a specific product line. It was called Llama displays, and they are fully collapsible displays that are really easy for stores to set up. So it's kind of a little particular market there. So I worked with a variety of customers. I have to say my favorite project that I got to work on though was actually not a Llama. It was this big hanging display up there. It was for H-E-B, which is a really large grocery chain within Texas. It was the first non-Llama project they had done with us. So it was kind of a big deal. It was probably the most money they had ever spent with us, so that was a little pressure on me. But we really wanted to make a good impression with them, and it was a really big learning experience for me because I hadn't worked on something that wasn't a Llama. So it was really fun because I always like a challenge, and I had a lot to learn, and it turned out really well. They put it up with their holiday displays and all that kind of stuff. So that was cool. But I have to say, my most memorable experience has been my time with Target. So Target is one of our biggest clients. On my very first day, I took a tour of our facility and I saw that we were producing Taylor Swift's album displays. And I thought that was super cool because if you know me, I'm a huge Taylor Swift fan. And so I saw that and I thought it was a good omen. I went to Target later and I bought the album and I knew that display had come through our facility, which was pretty cool. So that wasn't the last of my fun with Target. So Target, what they do when they have a really big display they want to do in the store, they'll do what is called a prototype overnight review. So they fly us down to their headquarters, which was in Minneapolis, and we set up an actual Target store in the middle of the night as it would look for the holidays. So then the executives can come around and look, see how it would look in stores, and then at the end of the night, we take it all down. So that was a really long night. We were there till 6 in the morning, but it was really cool. Got to see how we do that type of work with such a big client. And that also wasn't the last of the fun I would have with their holiday displays. Later, I was asked to go down to New York City and set up 5 of their highest traffic stores for the holidays. That time we didn't actually take it down. And that was really exciting, but it was also a lot of work. You don't really realize how much it takes to put up things within a store and really transform it. The best example of that, I would say, is probably the big bow display in that bottom left corner. Or right for you guys. But every one of those window panels is huge. And they wanted to wrap this, because Target, of course, they need to go crazy. They wanted to make the entire store look like it was wrapped in a bow. So we put up that bow, and it took hours. It was just 2 of us. But it worked really well, and it looked really nice, so it was worth it. And overall, that was just a great experience to learn how we build a relationship with one of our top clients. So all that being said, my experience with Target kind of led me to realize that I might want to do something more in a client-facing role, because I really liked having the experience of working directly with Target and developing a relationship with them. So my next role is going to be working with Carter's Baby Store. They're one of our top 5 clients, and I am going to be in a sales support position. So I'll be working really closely with the sales representative and kind of try to make sure everything goes well for them. So my first day is right when I get back, so wish me luck. Okay, so to bring it all in, Quad is more than a printer, but we do print really well. There are a lot of opportunities, especially as we expand into our 3.0 strategy. So it's not just printing anymore, it's pretty much any integrated channel that you can think of. There's opportunities for that, especially within the corporate trainee program. So please come see us at Career Day. We will be there and we will be conducting interviews for the corporate trainee program. And I know for me personally, if you have any questions, any ounce of interest in this program, please come talk to me. You can like DM me on Instagram or anything. I'm an open book, so whatever you're comfortable with, please come talk to me. And that being said,
When and where is Career Day? It's the first
great
time-
question.
What is this thing called Career Day?
Oh, great question, Malcolm. Thank you. Thank you. It's tomorrow, 9 to 12, and then interviews are 1 to 5.
Where is it?
Here.
In this room?
Yeah,
Excellent.
this very room.
And will you be giving away good things? Do you have any tchotchkes, swag?
Yes.
Yeah? So much
I
swag.
out here and I don't want to lug it home.
And will you be interviewing in the afternoon?
Yes.
People can practice their interviewing skills?
Yeah.
So here's a practical question.
Yes.
Tell us about, are you paid a full-time salary or? Are you
Oh, yeah. So I'm a full-time employee. Like I said, you're not treated like an intern or anything. So you are a full-time employee. I get paid hourly, but yeah, you're 40 hours a week every full benefits.
And how long does the program run? When will you be finished? When will you graduate?
Well, that's the unique thing about the corporate trainee program is that it's not a set period of time. So you pretty much will graduate the program once you find something that's a fit for you and also a business need.
So it can be 18 months to 3 years. Usually people find their fit within that time. Many people in about the 2-year mark or so.
And then do you get to choose where you end up?
You have a say, definitely. When I was in in-store, I sat down with Mike Draver, who's the head of in-store, and we kind of talked about my path and what I wanted to do. So that's how they kind of came up with my next position for me.
I think they have a plan to, there's one, I saw it, I was someplace where was it, Uruguay, I think you could apply to work there.
We currently don't have any international
Oh, God.
roles for our trainees, but I never say never.
Any other questions?
Do they have weather in Wisconsin?
There's
Yeah.
weather all winter. Yeah.
There's seasons.
Yeah.
There's seasons, which
Is
is,
it cold?
yeah,
Yeah.
it's cold.
It does get cold. It's snowing today. My husband texted me. But I can promise you this, people in Wisconsin and more really love the Four Seasons. So right now, if you walk downtown, lots of the bars have giant ice bars outside. So you just embrace it. You go ice skating, you go sledding. There's no bad weather, there's just bad clothing.
And when it hits 34, everybody's out in flip-flops, shorts, and a t-shirt.
Actually, 34 is
Yeah,
a
not
light
kidding.
winter jacket, yeah. But you do adjust. I would say you do adjust. But the rotational program as well, the opportunities at Quad aren't just in Wisconsin. We do have our headquarters there, but we have opportunities wherever we have a plant or an on-site office. So right now, I have 4 trainees down in Flower Mound, Texas. We have a gentleman out in Quincy, Boston area in Massachusetts. One of our trainees just graduated at Lowe's headquarters out in South Carolina. North Carolina, Chapel Hill area. So really the opportunities are endless. So it's not necessarily just a Wisconsin-based